welcome back to the channel. Let's Be Reconciled Ministry. Today's video is going to be another start of another series called The Evidence for God, or Contending for the Faith. I haven't decided which name to go with exactly, but I guess I'll figure out which name to go with and as we go on. But with this series, I want to react to videos that have evidence that will show us that the Bible is accurate and true and reliable, and with that, that also provides us with evidence for God as well. So, without further ado, let's get into the first video that we have here. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that the purpose for this series is to reach the lost and help them to see that there is evidence for the Bible and that they can trust the Bible and they can trust what it says, and they can then give their lives to Christ and be saved. So we can go on to the video now. Alright, so today we're going to be watching a video from Cold Case Christianity. And it's going to be it's called Evidence for God, so that you don't feel crazy. Okay, so let's start it here.
Is there really no evidence for God's existence? I think in a world in which people are most persuaded by scientific quote-unquote claims, right? I mean, science is the arbiter of all truth in the culture we're living today. And I hear this all the time. Well, you can't...
Also, I'd like to apologize for my very loud fan coming from my laptop. So I hope that's not too much of a bother for you there.
Not prove God's existence with evidence. Is that true? Is there no evidence for the existence of God? Well, I learned one thing working criminal trials. There's only two forms of evidence, right? There's direct evidence and indirect evidence. That's it. That's every form of evidence that we use when making a case in front of a jury. Direct and indirect evidence. Now, direct evidence is of one kind. It is eyewitness testimony. If it's not an eyewitness who can tell you what happened, who did it, who can describe the entire event for you, then you can't use direct evidence. Now, indirect evidence is everything else. In cases like mine, DNA evidence, that's indirect. Fingerprints, indirect evidence. Behaviors people observed, indirect evidence. Statements he made, indirect evidence. Unless it's an eyewitness who can tell you what happened, everything else is indirect evidence. But by the way, there's no...
Which I actually find fascinating, because usually people don't really they don't consider eyewitness testimony as evidence, but yet here we have a man here who is an investigator telling us that eyewitness testimony is actually a form of direct evidence, and everything else is indirect evidence. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Such category as hard evidence, so please stop saying that. We don't have hard evidence and soft evidence. There's direct evidence and indirect evidence. Now, could we make a case for God's existence from direct and indirect evidence? I think you could. Direct evidence might include, for example, eyewitness accounts, even if they're written down over a period of time. We have 4 Gospels that provide us with direct evidence, eyewitness accounts, and we can test those. But that's one way to determine, if, by the way, if there's a person historically who rose from the grave with the power of God, and you have an eyewitness account that chronicles that, and if you test the eyewitness account and it passes all with flying colors, why would you not consider that to be sufficient evidence to believe that God exists? But if that's not the way you want to go, and you want to go with indirect evidence, well, if we're in a universe where all space, time, and matter leapt into existence from nothing, that universe that resulted appears to be fine-tuned to a razor's edge for the existence of life. Not only that, life emerges from non-life in a way that is still yet no one can explain that even now. There are origin of life studies that still cannot explain how life emerges from non-life. And when it does emerge, it has a very commonly held observation that biology displays at least the signs of design, the attributes of the appearance of design. But also, we're in a universe in which we have minds that act freely. We are in a universe that has objective, transcendent moral truths. We are in a universe in which we sense the presence of evil or the existence of evil. And we have to have some type of high moral standard of righteousness to even detect such a thing. Look, these are indirect attributes of the universe that we could make a case. We could use these as evidence to make a case for the existence of God. Because it turns out that if there is a God, he is the best explanation for those attributes of the universe. And that's all we're trying to do in a crime scene, right? Is figure out which suspect will best explain the evidence in our crime scene. It turns out that you can make a case for God from both direct and indirect evidence. Let me give you another way of thinking about this. What kind of evidence would even suffice? What are we really looking for here? I always ask that question because if what they want, if what they need is for God to come right now and act miraculously in this moment and write their name in the stars or write their name on the side of the mountain, well, I can't make that happen for you. So I don't think we can have a productive conversation if that's the kind of evidence you need. But I think we could look at attributes of the universe and ask specific questions and see if the best inference is not a what as a cause, but a who. So, for example, as I look at the information.
And the point I wanted to make, what he said earlier, is like when people want to see a miracle in order to um, believe in God, um, which is not, not a wrong thing to want, but God, God knows us more than we know ourselves, and so we can say that we will want something, but that may not be aligned with what God believes that we need in order to um, believe Him. But I wanted to also say that in the book of Acts, uh, believers back then, they would have signs and wonders accompanying them as they went out to preach the gospel. And not, it's not really, I'm sure, yes, there are still miracles and signs and wonders today, but then it's not really seen as as often as it should, because you know, us as the body of Christ, we it's like we believe in God, but we seem to sometimes forget that God is supernatural, and He's a supernatural God, and He wants to do supernatural supernatural things through us. And He's given us spiritual gifts through the Holy Spirit, and we are to go out and practice those spiritual gifts that He's given us. And yeah, it's my hope that the church would come to I don't know, build our faith up more, so that people who generally seek after seeing a miracle or to believe in God would see a miracle and give their life to Christ. So that's why that was a little long take there, but let's get back into the video.
information in DNA. And I see how those nucleotides are arranged in that longest molecule known to humans, DNA. And I see that information, those nucleotides, are arranged in a code that is informative, that is information. And I realize from all my past experiences anywhere, the information always comes from the mind of an intelligent being. Why would I not then look for a who to explain the information in DNA? Let me put it this way.
All right,
if I'm
back.
walking to a crime scene and there was a struggle in this crime scene and the suspect killed the victim here, and sure enough, there is blood spatter on the wall where the murder occurred. That spatter pattern I can attribute to the physics of blood and gravity and action that caused the blood spatter on the wall. I could explain that with nothing more than physics. But if I walked into the same room and instead of there being blood spatter on the wall, there was written in this victim's blood, he deserved it, on the wall. Now I'm not looking for a what. It's not physics that caused that. I'm looking for a who, because that information and that sequence of code we call language, right? The English language, if it's written in English, that has to come not from physics, but from a mind. If we are seeing information in DNA, and we know by practical experience it always comes from mind, why would we not look for a who in explaining DNA? By the way, a very famous atheist named Antony Flew, one of the most famous atheists of the last century, before he died, moved from atheism to at least deism or theism on the basis of one thing: information in DNA. Even Antony Flew decided at some point it was not reasonable to answer that, to look for a cause that was a what. He knew the only cause that could cause information in DNA was a who. So yes, you actually can use the world around us and evidence in the world around us to infer that the most reasonable explanation for that evidence is the existence of God. Is believing in God like believing in the flying spaghetti monster? When I hear skeptics online,
That's not even a creative insult. When I think about the flying spaghetti monster that people like to use to mock Christians or to mock God, and just to so you know that God should not be mocked. But to me, that insult is it's not creative. But anyway, let me get back into it.
mock or poke fun at believers, Christians, or any kind of theist, you'll often hear them say that believing in God is like believing in the flying spaghetti monster. This flying spaghetti monster as a notion has been offered as kind of a substitute for God. And it was first really created by a guy named Bobby Henderson in 2005. He also created a kind of a larger view called Pastafarianism. And really, this was created by Bobby in response to the Kansas school district, where he saw that intelligent design, a notion of creation that comes from the mind of a designer to explain the features of the cosmos, the features of biology. He saw that emerging in his local school district, and he decided to offer this alternative and to claim that believing in God is as ridiculous as believing in the flying spaghetti monster. But let's be clear about one thing. Bobby does not believe in the flying spaghetti monster any more than he believes in God. This was really just a notion that was invented to kind of make the distinction, to make a case against God. And although he's applied in a number of countries for Pastafarianism as a recognized national religion, he's been denied everywhere he applied. Why? Why would that be the case? Well, in large part because people understand, and governments understand, and nations understand the difference between religious claims and fictional claims. We have good evidence to demonstrate that Christianity is true from both the direct evidence of eyewitness accounts and the indirect evidence of features of the universe that demonstrate that God exists. It's not as though we're just picking a notion out of thin air and describing it in such a way that we want everyone to believe it. No, actually, this is the great thing about Christianity. Christianity is not just a claim, an unattached claim, a set of proposals about God. No, Christianity is a claim about a historical event that can be tested, the way that other historical events can be tested. Look, I will tell you that there are certain kind of fortune cookie type of religious claims, maybe a set of just proverbs that people will look at and say, these are the beautiful teachings of Buddha or Baha'u'llah but these do not describe an event that's rooted in history, like the resurrection. That is the claim of Christianity. It makes Christianity very different than any other kind of religious claim. It's not as though people thought of, well, let's just think of a crazy character like the flying spaghetti monster. No, it's that something happened in the course of history that people observed and wrote about, and we have that direct evidence claim to review thousands of years later. That is very different. Can you see the difference between fictional notions that are not rooted in history and claims for which we have an historical record? If we can't see that distinction, it's going to be hard to advance any conversation about the nature of God or Christianity. The claims related to the flying spaghetti monster are by their very nature very different than the claims related to Christianity.
All right, that's the end of the video. Hold on. So yeah, that was the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned something new. I thought it was very fascinating and full of a bunch of just good knowledge and evidence for God. You know, I highly recommend watching other videos from this channel called Cold Case Christianity, and let me know what you thought in the comments. And it's my hope of this series is to lead people to Christ and have them to see that Christianity is the way. Well, but I should say Jesus is the way, and that it's not something that we just believe in, but it's true, and it's for reasonable reasons as to why we believe, because there is reasonable evidence and reasoning for us believing. And yeah, it's my hope that these videos will lead people to Christ to be saved. And yeah, that is the end of this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and also click the bell notification if you do not want to miss any uploads from me whenever I do upload. That is all, and we'll see you all in the next video.